You're going to need a bigger boat.
Hi and welcome to my channel. My name's Trish and I'm an artist who mostly crochets and paints. I also really love horror movies, so now that summer's over and Halloween is on the way, I thought, why not combine the two and review some of my favourite horror movies while crocheting something from the film. Now before we get started, please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and feel free to comment your favourite horror movies in the comments section on what you'd like me to review and crochet next. So the first film I've chosen is an absolute classic and a movie that scared the bejesus out of me as a child, Jaws. So if you've never seen it before, Jaws was first released in 1975, directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw. Based on the novel by Peter Benchley, the inhabitants of the peaceful town on Amity Isle finds themselves under attack from a great white shark, and it's up to Chief Brody, a marine biologist and a grizzled shark hunter, to destroy it before it strikes again. So you can't talk about Jaws without mentioning the iconic shark theme by John Williams. It sets the mood for the entire movie and helps build up suspense when the shark is near. As some of you may know, the model shark they had for the film kept malfunctioning, and one of the inventive ways of signalling to the audience the shark is near without seeing it is by using the music and shooting the theme from the shark's perspective, swimming up to get its next victim. Now, one of the reasons that I initially liked this movie so much, even though it scared me, is because the protagonist is extremely likeable and generally pretty sensible for a horror movie. The film does a really good job of showing that he's a loving husband and father. There's a very humanising scene with him sitting at the dinner table, contemplating the day, and his younger son imitating his actions. He also seems to genuinely care about the people of the town, and there's the tension between him and the mayor, who's hungry for money and wants the tourist money from that summer, and Brody genuinely wanting to protect the people of the town. We've got a very interesting dynamic between the three main characters once we get on the boat. We've got Chief Brody, who's very sensible, but a little shy and not as forthright as he should be in his position as Chief of Police. And we've got the very knowledgeable marine biologist, who's quite spoilt and not very hardened with life. He's not very experienced. And then we've got the shark hunter, who is extremely hardened but maybe a little too prideful. They all get quite an interesting character arc as the film develops, and we get to learn more about their characters and why they behave the way they do. And I think their dynamic really carries the film in the slower portions leading up to the climax of the film. Another reason that I would recommend this movie is because even though it was shot in the 70s, it has aged incredibly well. There is very limited and maybe no CGI used at all. The majority of the film is filmed on set, so they did actually go out to sea. They are filming the scenes in the water. There's no dry for wet scenes. There's not a lot of use of green screen, which tends to age very poorly. When shooting the shark, as I said, they did make a model that could move somewhat, which doesn't look the best now, but you don't see it a great deal in the film. They use the camera shot most of the time to show the movement of the shark or the barrels in the water, and then they do actually use some shots of real sharks that they got seen in the cage where the shark is struggling around, and some of the passing scenes with the shark swimming overhead. Another thing that I really appreciate is that this film doesn't rely on jump scares or false scares. If there is a scare, it's because something genuinely frightening has happened, and quite often if it does have something that's surprising, it doesn't have a loud orchestral sting to make you jump. Maybe that's not an issue to some, but personally, I'm not a big fan of jump scares and I find it a little bit cheap and lazy, so this is quite a refreshing film. The only negatives I can think of to mention are there are some portions of the film where the pacing does slow down a little bit, and the music maybe doesn't match as perfectly as it does to the rest of the film. Towards the end of the film it gets a little bit too upbeat and happy during the shark chase theme, which didn't seem to really fit with the tone of a lot of the rest of the film. There's also a certain character who happens to drop key items in a couple of scenes which lead to further conflict in the film. Maybe unavoidable sometimes in order to continue the narrative and to cause conflict, but it did become a bit noticeable to me that this same character drops two very important items at key moments in the film. And it became a little bit comical to me, this Butterfingers person. Besides that, I think the characters are very believable. The conflicts make sense. People are not constantly making irrational decisions. And if there are irrational decisions, you can understand why that character has that particular point of view. If it's because of emotion, something that's just happened, or because of something they want to achieve. There aren't a lot of moments of people just randomly doing things because the plot needs it to happen. And the acting is excellent in this movie. All of the protagonists are incredibly believable. Nobody overacts, there's nothing that's too melodramatic. All of the moments become completely believable to me, and it really carries the film. There are only two moments I can think of that are almost not noticeable at all, of an extra either not behaving perfectly in a scene or a stock sound footage of a person screaming that I've heard in a couple of movies now, but those are the only things I can notice that weren't perfect. One little caveat though, as much as I love this film, it is a great shame that this increased the general public's fear of sharks, and seems to have led to more sharks being killed in real life. Sharks are generally not interested in humans, and we kill far many more of them than they do of us. You're more likely to die in the toilet than to be killed by a shark, so please don't be afraid of sharks in general. We are much more of a threat to them than they are of us, and we should leave them alone. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my review and my crocheting of my little mini shark. Obviously he's not nearly as threatening as the actual shark in Jaws. I tend to make stuff a bit cuter and chubbier than they are in real life, so I hope you like him. And again, if you would like me to review and crochet something from another film, leave a comment below, and I'll see you next time.